Hi guys, Jimmy Fluke here for Apex Racing Academy. This is our Portimao track guide for week 9 of the Falcon Tower Sports Car Challenge in the Mercedes-AMG GT4. As well as these track guides, we're also giving away the Mercedes-AMG GT4 data pack for free this season, and that includes your qualifying and race setups. And for this week, that includes both the wet and the dry, B-Lab and O-Lab reference files, the replay files, and then access to our group coaching sessions on a Tuesday evening. All you need to do is go to apexracingac.com, link in the description, and put in your email in order to get your data pack for free. In terms of the track this week, Portimao is a mixed bag, especially with the conditions that we've got this week where we don't know if it's going to be wet or dry. In the wet, it's very slippery in the bottom of the valleys, so being in the Mercedes I think is an advantage where the car's just that little bit more stable. If it's dry, a lot of high-speed sweeping corners suit the car quite well, but also some traction zones can catch the car out. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Just another reminder, guys, that you can get this season's Mercedes-AMG GT4 data pack for free over at apexracingac.com or by following the link in the description below. Okay, so here we are at Portimao in the wet this time for the Mercedes-AMG GT4 for the Falcon Tower Sports Car Challenge. So we'll roll it down through into turn 1. On the dry line, we would be left side wheels over into the paint, but obviously we don't want to do that. It's very slippery out there in the wet, so all 4 wheels on the tarmac here, but braking point's pretty similar just as we're starting to come down the hill and past the 150 board here. Braking effort is still going to be pretty similar as well, strong threshold braking down into 3rd gear, but it is slippery as we turn in because there's going to be a rubbered in line, but taking the wet line sort of approach in here just makes the corner far too tight, so we just have to exercise a little bit of caution on turn in on the way in. So give yourself room just to feel out the grip and make sure that you can get your right side wheels onto the inside curb. Normally people think of touching curbs is a bad idea, but when we don't have a lot of throttle or brake applied, we can kind of just sort of roll through the curb and then still take a pretty good line through here. So pretty smooth with the throttle pickup. Find a percentage that sort of works for you. For me, it's around 50%. In the dry, this percentage would be a little bit higher for a 3rd gear corner like this. And then on exit, because the car is sort of sliding and loaded on the left-hand side, we don't want to be leaning into the paint or onto the curbs on the way out. So on exit, just make sure to stay within the white lines and exit the corner. Turn 2 requires a lift in the wet here. Again, we can be fairly aggressive with our line, but just exercise that little bit of caution here. So I'm taking white line and a little bit of curb, but I've reduced the throttle down there to about 50%. This means on exit, It's a little bit slippery, but straight then onto the brakes as soon as I can get the car squared off out of turn 2 for the braking zone of turn 3. Again, fairly similar sort of braking application as with the wet, but in the dry we keep it in second. In the wet we'll grab first just to help slow the car down, and we're carrying less mid-corner speed here. In this case I do avoid the inside curb because it's a traction zone. We don't want to be spinning the inside rear up, and yeah, the grip and the risk versus reward is just slightly unfavourable. On exit, we've got this massive puddle on the left-hand side, so we want to avoid that. We're going to do that anyway, regardless of whether that puddle is there or not, because we want to bring the car far over to the right-hand side to really open up turn 4. So gentle with the throttle, up into second gear. We'll grab third as well, and sweep it in from a fairly wide angle. There's a bit of grip on the far outside line here, but it's not so grippy that you would just completely run a super wide line through the corner. We still need to apex at some point here. So up over the crest, bleeding out of the throttle, trying to avoid the white line and the curb on the inside because traction is at a premium through here, and coming up over the crest, and then patience back onto the throttle on the way out, again trying to avoid the slippery stuff as we come through. So down the hill towards turn 5. I do try and stay slightly off the sort of traditional racing line here, and certainly well off the paint as well. Brake point in the wet is again pretty similar to the dry. If I go chase cam, unfortunately though, there's nothing visual that works really nice as a marker. So it's well after the white mark that we have just gone past, but it's just pretty much as soon as we get to the top of the hill that we want to get onto the brakes. The reason why the brake point is pretty much the same is that we're deliberately throwing the car deep here. The apex is very slippery. A lot of standing water pulls up on the inside, so we need to go deep of that and then rotate the car very quickly. We're basically V'ing off the corner, if that makes sense. So driving it in really deep, turn the car as much as we can in the middle of the corner to get a nice straight exit, and we're also missing the inside line so that we can get the throttle down more efficiently as well, sort of on a slightly grippier line. Throttle pickup, again, we're taking it very gentle, once again in first gear, so patience with the throttle is very, very important. And as soon as we can get straightened out, up into second gear, and once again avoiding the curbing and the paint on the outside. Turn 6, we just need to take a slightly wider line here. Again, standing water builds up, but we will still grab fourth gear, and then on entry to turn 7, again, standing water and a pool of water on the left-hand side just before the 50 board, which is where we normally want to brake. So we're braking towards the middle of the track, even though that definitely is a suboptimal line. Down into third, and this is another corner where we will take a surprising amount of curb because we're not applying too much throttle or brake. So we're not going to brake traction as such because our inputs are very gentle at this point. So gently through in third, and again on exit, making sure not to run wide here because we will then need to apply the brakes fairly aggressively for turn 8. This is a very tricky braking zone regardless because even though we're avoiding the paint and the curb, there's still rubber laid down on the racing line. We can't bring the car far enough over to the right hand side to avoid it, so this is a sort of grin and bear it kind of braking zone here. Down into second gear, just patience with it, not too hard on the brake pressure. Expect a snap in some areas as you're trying to feed the car in towards the apex, and we still take a fairly traditional line. You can run it deep and square the car off on exit, but in this case I took a more traditional line. It is just as quick though, to be fair. On exit and with the throttle pickup, again very gentle with the throttle pickup, slowly feeding it in, and you could see that I was fighting the car there on the way through. Once again on exit, avoid the slippery stuff. So heading towards the now very dangerous turn 9. In the dry, this is absolutely pinned and not really a corner to worry about, but because we're sort of in the middle of a valley here, there's water that will stream down from both sides of the hill and will pull up pretty much on the apex here. There is no nice way of getting through here. You will probably aquaplane, so bleeding completely out of the throttle, or at least carrying just a tiny bit of throttle, and doing that super early so that the car is as stable as possible through here. I do pick up inside curb, again, because I'm not carrying a ton of speed and a ton of throttle either. But all of the grip then is on the outside here. So let the car slide and wobble about a little bit out towards this outside line until you can find sort of the safe haven of a little bit of grip. Just as we come up to the top of the crest here, we're going to get onto the brakes for turns 10 and 11. Again, not much visual to work with here, especially over on the right-hand side. This is a very difficult lap to get right, so just do be patient with it. On the brakes here, very, very gentle. In the dry, we'd be 50% pressure. In the wet, it is significantly lower. We have to cut through the rubbered in line as well here, so just hold the wheel straight, let the car arc out towards the outside, and then try and tuck it into the best of your ability, but don't be a hero here. It's very easy to run really wide and then lose heaps of lap time. So as you can see, I'm sort of fighting the wheel there on the way in, but once the car's somewhat stabilized in second gear, then we can tuck the nose in, pick up the throttle, and take a fairly sort of traditional line through turn 11 here. I do avoid the inside curb because with it being a second gear corner and I'm trying to build momentum off the corner at this phase, the inside rear will spin up, so I do try and avoid the slippery stuff. On exit, out towards the white line, but not super far over, because we need to try and actually open up turn 12. Normally we don't need to do this in the dry, but in the wet, especially given this is another corner where there's a lot of standing water, we just need to be patient through here. So a nice early lift, let the car be as stable as possible before taking the inside curb. You may need to fight it on the way through, but similar to turn 9, there's sanctuary on the outside with plenty of grip just before we get to the white line. So don't be too afraid to let the car sort of sit on a wider line if you're more comfortable with that, but I do find that it is a little bit slower. In towards turn 12, pretty traditional sort of corner actually, just again we're avoiding the paint and the curb on the inside, but everything else is pretty straightforward. Moderate peak pressure, bleeding off, turn the car in, adjust where necessary. Slowly feed the throttle in and keeping it fairly shallow on the way out, just so we can bring the car over to the left-hand side and have it stable before entering turn 13. Just as the grass ends on the left-hand side, maybe even fractionally later than that, which is deeper than what we would brake in the dry, because we're going to throw the car out really wide here and find the grip on the outside line. On the inside, with it being a slightly off-camber corner and then rubber built up, there is no grip on the inside at all, so throw it in nice and wide. Out towards the white line if you can, and let the car rotate, pick up the throttle, and where your time gained here is all purely on traction. On the inside line, you're fighting for grip the entire way. On the way out, in the wet conditions here, just make sure to get it squared off and avoid the paint on the outside. And then final corner, again staying off the paint, turning in though at pretty much the same point, bleeding off in the same way that we would in the dry before we climb the crest, but basically leaving the car in the middle of the circuit. Towards the inside is quite slippery, and the car will wash out, so avoid the traditional racing line where rubber gets let down, but the rest of it then takes care of itself. Once the car feels settled mid-corner, you can accelerate hard and utilise the grip on the outside. From there, it's a straight run to the line, and that's lap at Portimao in the wet in the Mercedes-AMG GT4. Thanks for watching. Make sure to go over to apexracingac.com to get your free Mercedes-AMG GT4 data pack for the rest of the season. For further questions and info, join our Discord server, which you can access with your subscription. We host a group coaching session on a Tuesday evening, so make sure to check the details in the Mercedes-AMG GT4 car channel once you've signed up. That's all from me this week. See you in the next one.